Hi, I'm Nicole Reineke. I'm a distinguished engineer in the Office of the CTO.
And hello, everybody. My name is Steve Todd, and I'm a fellow in the Office of the CTO.
For decades, we've been giving away our information freely. It was really easy to do, and it was seemingly inexpensive. And most of us have since realized that what we did was actually incredibly personally expensive. We've been giving away something that was really valuable, our personal information. And smart devices and the Internet of Things, they've actually accelerated this sharing. Yeah, we got improvements in time and productivity and convenience. And in some cases, we actually saved lives. But there's also a dark side. People are generating more and more information about themselves faster than ever before. And I don't know about you, but I don't feel in control over who has my data and what it's being used for. There are standards in companies that exist today that are working on this, and they're very important, but they aren't solving the whole problem. Because if you think about everything involved, what's happening is it's not just about me sharing my personal information with one application. What you have to consider is the aggregate of all organizations and applications and providers who you've shared information with. What do they know about you? What we have here is actually an ecosystem problem. And we have a wild hypothesis. We think you can solve an ecosystem problem by abstracting people and abstracting their personal information. And we call this personal data silos. But it has a twist. Imagine, if you will, that we actually turn people into data silos. We give them complete control over what goes out and what comes in. And we audit and trace everything. That's going to give people both transparency and control over all of their personal information and how other people use it. And with transparency, you can trace data access and see aggregate views over time and understand everywhere your data has ever been. And with control, maybe you can stop gifting your information permanently, provide access with a time limit, or even stop people from accessing your information and require that they send you the algorithms to run, and you can decide whether or not to send them back the results. And the benefit of this is that we can actually restore data as a form of personal property, and we can try to correct that data imbalance. And creating this kind of a privacy-conscious and customer-centric solution is really difficult. We have to change the behavior of everyone involved. We have to change the behavior of organizations, and we have to change the behavior of people. And we suspect the people is the hardest part of that problem, because you have to do this in a way that is understandable to everybody and not just those who are technology minded. A personal data silo system, it would have to convey information in a way that's digestible. And we would have to give people the way to understand what the impact of not sharing their information is as well. Because a lot of information is actually used for greater good. If you think about things like healthcare and finance systems and utilities and energy, it requires information from across our society. And if you have some people who know how to withhold that information, do you accidentally create data sets that introduce bias, where it only represents a portion of the population? And this is a really difficult conversation because it involves creating or accidentally creating a class system where you create this data divide or you further the existing data divide. And this is an important conversation that we have to have. The organization and application side of it, we suspect, is complicated but slightly easier because we have economics on our side. When you can understand and create systems and markets that create economic viability for companies, typically you can gain adoption. But despite these challenges, the world of personal data silos is really within our reach. And we're going to invite Steve over here, and why don't you discuss what we've got going on?
Thank you, Nicole. So we've created a technology at Dell known as a data confidence fabric, or a DCF. And today what I'd like to talk about is how that technology can help implement in a real world way a personal data silo. So first, before I explain how we can solve the challenges of a personal data silo, I'd like to describe an IoT and edge environment, or an ecosystem in which a DCF was first invented. So if you look at the picture, in the bottom left-hand side of the picture, we have a sensor, an IoT sensor that's creating data. And running alongside the data path, which goes from the sensor to the gateway to the server and perhaps to an application in the cloud, we have a distributed ledger. Now, in this example, that distributed ledger is the IOTA tangle. And what happens is when data is born at the sensor, it's registered in the IOTA tangle, and it's given a score. And as the data travels from the sensor to the gateway and towards an application, a ledger entry is created for each stop. Now, when the application looks at this information, it also has this sidecar that's traveled along with it that allows the application to know whether or not this data is trustworthy. So now, while this invention was created in the context of an IoT and edge ecosystem, now let's turn it around and go the other way and think about it as a personal data silo. If you replace the sensor with a human or a consumer that's creating data, that consumer immediately registers the fact that that data is theirs, they're the owner, and any other metadata that they'd like to attach with it. But instead of sending that data immediately out of their silo, customers can first allow applications to come in. And every time an application touches that data, a new ledger entry is created. So now the consumer has much more control over the access and visibility and transparency of what's happening to that data. And we think that if we can standardize a data confidence fabric in the industry, this would allow a consumer to only let the data out of their personal silo if the application they give it to is also participating in a trusted data confidence fabric. So in general, Dell, we are pushing to standardize data confidence fabric technology, not only for the IoT edge, but we think it has a long-term play in implementing personal data silos. Nicole, back to you.
Thanks so much, Steve. As you can see, we're working on some incredibly exciting technology. And despite the challenges that still exist, we are really close to achieving the ideal of a personal data silo. Thank you so much for listening to us today, and we hope that you keep this in mind.